Hello and welcome, DragonCon 2023. We are DragonCon Theater and Performing Arts lovers unofficial. We're just coming to you with some recorded panels for all of our friends who cannot sadly make it to con and for those who can. Today we are doing the magic of Disney on Broadway. So yay! I have all of these amazing panelists. If everybody could introduce themselves, starting with JJ.
Hi, my name's JJ Hawkins. I live in Portland, Oregon. Actor, director for my entire lifetime, and now podcaster. I guess I'll just say hi.
And Lauren.
Hi, I'm Lauren. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. I've grown up backstage behind the scenes in theaters and do computer work to support my need to travel and see theater shows constantly.
Same. Lawrence.
Hello, everybody. I am Lawrence Niels. I'm from New York, Manhattan, in the city. I'm an actor, producer, writer, and a singer for my entire life since I was 9 years old. I'm not done yet, even though my knees hurt at the end of every show. And I also produce the New York Cosplay Cabaret, which is musical theater and geek culture all smashed together in one, because why not?
And you, Deanna.
I'm Deanna. I am from the Great White North of Canada. In my misspent youth, I went to a performing arts high school for drama and got very heavily involved in tech, which has continued to benefit me, having gotten to be a stage manager for a school production of one of the musicals we're going to talk about tonight. So, yeah.
Oh, great. And Rob.
Hey, I'm Rob Levy. I am in St. Louis, Missouri. Hello, DragonCon. I'll probably see some of you actually in the hallway after this, which will be weird. But
only if you're wearing the same shirt.
Wave, though.
Only if you're wearing the same shirt will it be weird.
Don't forget to hydrate.
I don't wear a shirt at DragonCon. No, I'm kidding. I write about theater for Broadway World and do a couple podcasts and whatever.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you all being here. If you didn't know already, I am Sarah Rose. I'm the stage manager of our little group here. And anyway, we're going to start talking about Disney. So I think this is like the expected first question for us here. So it is, what was your first Disney produced show that you saw or you had experience in, and why did you see it? And we'll start again with you, JJ.
I was kind of afraid you were going to start with me because see, I'll try to keep this as brief as I possibly can. But as far as like Disney musicals go, I kind of came up at the exact wrong time, meaning that I was so I went to a like junior high and high school of the performing arts, like when Les Mis and all the spectacle musicals were up. Yeah. And so there's two ways that you could kind of come out of that, is embracing everything or being the punk rock heavy metal snob that I was. And so when Disney started getting into real musicals, I turned up my nose at it. I really did. I've had a complete change of heart. If you'd asked me to do this maybe even 9-10 months ago, I probably would have gone, no, you're talking to the wrong guy. Mm-hmm. But I've seen things in recent years that have made me realize that sort of like leftover snobbery that I'd gotten rid of for a lot of other things, I needed to get rid of for theater. I think the final shoe for me was when I saw Beetlejuice in New York this December and went, oh wait, this show's brilliant. And it says something that the musical, or excuse me, that the movie doesn't say. I know that's not what we're talking about, but so although I have avoided things, I've said snarky things about The Lion King. I've said, why do certain things have to exist? But I will say, and I know that we're talking about this a little bit later, But one of the coolest experiences I've had in a theater, like in the last several years, is when I went to California Adventure like 3 years ago. And I went to what I thought was just going to be a musical jamboree, and turned out to be an entire performance of Frozen.
Oh,
And
wow.
Cool.
I'm a 10-year-old girl at heart. Frozen is one of my favorite musicals that's come out in recent years, and I was just there like bright-eyed, just like amazed the whole time. So I mean, ignoring my past self, they certainly have their place. They're magical, they're wonderful. The movies have for years been some of the best written music that's been put out there into musical film. So why not put them on the stage?
Definitely. How about you, Lawrence?
It's funny because when I think of my first Disney musical experience, I don't necessarily think of Broadway first. I think of the first thing that pops into my head is Fantasia, which is that's the first thing that pops into my head. I used to listen to that dragon coming around the corner at the theme park and like listen to it incessantly. JJ, I can agree with you. When Disney first came to Broadway, I grew up at I was in the absolute right time, but I was a little bit of a Broadway snob, which I was reminded of by someone recently. I went to the opening night of previous for Back to the Future in cosplay, and someone reminded me. They said, "Dude, 10 years ago, you yourself, as big a nerd as you are, would have said that's completely inappropriate to go to a Broadway show and cosplay." And there you are dressed as Marty McFly. So I kind of turned up my nose a bit at Disney too. I didn't go see Beauty and the Beast when it first opened on Broadway. My first Broadway Disney musical was The Lion King in '98 when it opened, which I was also lucky enough to be at opening night. And it never rang to me as a Disney musical, which is probably one of the reasons I enjoyed it so much.
Definitely.
And they do, the stuff that Disney has, not all, but the things that they have put on stage has been exceptional, and has been exceptional writing, exceptional costume and choreography. We all know that, the Empire of the Mouse has the resources to throw that stuff onto stage. So it's been appreciative. It could also arguably be said that Disney saved Broadway when it was gasping for breath in the late 80s and early 90s, financially and commercially.
Yeah.
Although that's a whole nother panel as to whether or not that is a good thing now in 2023. The cure might have been worse than the disease to some people. I don't think so. But yeah, that's my earliest thing. And The Lion King, obviously, what made it spectacular is that Julie Taymor, directed, didn't try to put a Disney musical on stage. She put Hamlet on stage, which is what it was in the first place, and dressed it up as a Disney musical.
Definitely.
So they, in the past, have not been afraid to take chances with their productions. And that's been a cool thing that I've enjoyed seeing them.
Definitely. How about you, Lauren?
The first Disney produced musical I saw was technically Aida, which I love, but I did not think of it as like a Disney musical. And the first Disney musical that I saw was The Lion King. And when I saw it, it blew my mind. It was amazing. I never realized that you could use the aisles of theater as part of your show. And so when I was directing our theater troupe in college, I was like, we're going to do something in the aisles because we can. So it stuck in my brain.
Definitely. How about you, Rob?
So I've been thinking hard about this with my old man brain. And I don't think I really saw a Disney musical until Lion King. Not on Broadway, but when it was touring. I think I saw it on the first tour after it left Broadway, sort of in that first wave. I probably have seen various productions of Mary Poppins and Sound of Music, but I don't think they count since they weren't the big shaboom, things. I think Lion King is the earliest one I can remember, which I believe I saw probably in the mid 90s, early 2000s, I believe. And then I saw it again last couple of years ago.
Okay.
So I think that's it.
Definitely. How about you, Deanna?
My first memory, well, I mean, like JJ, I was in high school when Les Mis and Phantom and all those things, and I went the other way. I came out hard for musicals, hard. And one of my big regrets is I can't carry a tune in a bucket. Otherwise, I would be on Broadway because that's like singing. And my son can tell you I have a song for every moment. But for Disney musicals specifically, if I don't think about the little books that I used to read when I was a child, where the Tinkerbell would ring the bell and turn the page, and
Mm-hmm.
those kind of books that I grew up watching, those Disney movies, it was The Lion King. But it was an interesting place to see it. I was cleaning my apartment in university, and I had Rosie on,
Mm-hmm.
and Rosie had the opening scene from The Lion King on,
Mm,
and
awesome.
from across the room, I saw antelope jumping on the stage, and my brain went, "There are real antelope on that stage. Like, what the hell?"
Mm-hmm.
And I went running to the TV, and like a 3-year-old child, had my nose right up against the screen, trying to figure out how do they do that. Because, like I said it earlier, I got really into tech, so I spend a lot of time in theater going, "Oh, that's a cool effect. Oh, that's neat what they're doing the lights. Like, how do they do that?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was analyzing, how are they getting this sort of image of antelopes? How are they fooling my brain? Like, how is this working? And it blew my mind. And then when I got to see it live, there was an elephant walking in the aisle. Like, it was an elephant. Yes, it was a puppet, but it was an elephant. And I remember crying, just weeping, as I watched this elephant come down the stairs. So for me, it was Lion King, and it was just the breathtaking achievement of the combination of puppetry and dance that I think we still see in Broadway shows today, with Life of Pi and Warhorse earlier, the way that kind of movement of the body twinned with puppetry can evoke real animals. And so that's really where I kind of just fell headfirst in.
Definitely. Yeah. Well, to transition into, and I think we kind of touched some on this, was like, what do you think of is the appeal of Disney theme shows? Like, Disney has a reputation of being made for kids, and sometimes, you have the JJs of the world that that doesn't belong on Broadway, or you have some people are like, it helps create the magic and sustains and saves Broadway, like Lawrence said, some people have the opinion of. So what do you think is that appeal, and do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing for the theater? And Rob, why don't we start with you?
So I was actually literally just thinking about this with a discussion with some other folks a couple days ago. I think some of this is kind of a piggyback off of, first of all, I think it's the success of, like, people love Disney movies so much that they were a natural transition to turn into musicals. And then I think some of this is that the jukebox musicals have done so well that people were sort of like looking for something. They want something more than that, but something not too much. So Disney is kind of like perfect because it's great. It's a great way to have a day at the theater with, Aunt Fran and the kids and the dads, and everybody can go. The Disney musicals, for the most part, are pretty watchable for a diverse audience. And I think that you don't have to have a vast knowledge of theater to go into these things. You just have to know this is a prince, this is a princess. You don't have to have the backdrop that you need necessarily to see, Oklahoma or some of the other musicals, right?
For sure.
So I think that's some of it. I think that it's also, people want to go to a musical, but they don't want to have to feel intimidated by the arts. So they just come in and it's like, okay, I've seen this. I've seen Beauty and the Beast. I know what this is. I've seen Frozen. I know what this is. A lot of it could be parents trying to get their kids into arts, but I think it's sort of like, originally I was in the camp of JJ, where I thought of it sort of as this like disposable art form. So I think a lot of it sort of thought of it as like this sort of like disposable way of going to see a musical. It's like, well, I'm gonna go see a musical. It's based on a movie that is a cartoon, so the kids will like it and I don't have to do anything. And then before you know it, the kids get hooked. Like
Mhm.
Frozen really tricks you. I just saw Frozen this past year,
Oh,
and it really tricks you because you're expecting it to be this like, oh, it's kind of a kid thing, and then no, it's kind of not.
Mhm.
So that's the long answer to your question.
Okay. I like
Sorry.
long answers. Lauren, how about you?
I think it's got a good appeal because it's family friendly, and it's also kind of sort of cozy because you grew up watching Disney musicals. You know what it's going to be. You're familiar with the story, and then you go in, and then Disney blows your mind with
Mhm.
the costumes that you take 10 minutes to realize are actually puppets, and they did not wrangle an elephant on stage, or things like that.
Mhm.
And it's got a great appeal to, like I said, a wide audience.
Mhm.
And when you're coming in to either introduce your kids or you want a family activity, you can't find a babysitter, or you're on a trip to New York City and you want to take the kids to their very first Broadway show, it's something they can go see.
Definitely. Definitely. How about you, Lawrence? What do you think about all this?
I think the appeal depends on sometimes depend on who you ask.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I think people who work in producing and putting together Broadway shows like these shows because, as Rob said, these shows they sort of have a built-in audience and they're gateway to Broadway, which means they're almost always guaranteed to make money unless somewhere along the line something goes horribly wrong in the translation of the production,
Mhm.
which can happen. Not necessarily that I think it's happened to Disney, but it can happen to production. But I
Spider-Man.
think, I was trying not to say that. I was
The elephant
trying
in
not
the room.
Everybody was thinking
I was
it.
trying not to say that. And ironically, one of the best shows on Broadway and what's one of the worst shows on Broadway were both directed by the same person.
Yes, that's the big tragedy.
So not everybody gets a bullseye every single time. And so but yeah, I think for a lot of people, especially for people with kids, for people who might be intimidated by Broadway, because in the past Broadway has been considered by those who say didn't grow up in the tri-state area
Mhm.
as elitist, maybe snobbish, maybe, oh, I need to have a degree in English literature to understand even the first 30 seconds of anything Sondheim wrote. So Disney is an easy gateway into theater for families, for individuals, for people.
Definitely.
As far as people who want to come and see theater, kids obviously, and I say kids like I was a kid when these movies came out. I was an adult and I still love Disney movies. But also it's like, great, this is something that's translated to stage and I want to see how they translate on the stage. So there's a built-in audience there.
Definitely. How about you, Deanna? You seem like you have some thoughts.
Well, I think we have to talk about what is the appeal for Disney. And if you think about it, mounting a Broadway production is not cheap. And there's they've already got some of those expenses taken care of. The script is mostly written. Yep, they'll have to tweak it for Broadway. The songs are mostly written. Yep, they're going to have to write a new one to qualify for the Tony for Best Original Song. But that's already built in, and they know they have an audience. They know that when this goes out on tour, they will have an audience that will come to the shows. Yeah. There's also an axiom in my town. We have a local repertory theater, like most people do, a musical theater. And anytime that theater company needs money, they mount the Sound of Music. And what happens is it brings the people in droves, in part because all the little Von Trapp children families come to see the show and all their friends come to see the show. But it's also just because it's such a family-friendly thing that, oh, yes, let's go see the Sound of Music. It's the same thing with the Disney musicals. Then that also leads to the Disney Junior productions, right? Where then Disney's now shopping those out to schools to promote, like we did at my school when we did Beauty and the Beast. So there's an appeal in the commercial sense. And as much as we love it as an art form, you can't divorce the fact that this is also a commercial endeavor, not just for Disney, but for any Broadway show. And so that's the appeal for Disney. For people like us, try not to sing along. These are
don't be that person in the theater. Be like,
these are some of the most beloved, and they're being smart, which with the ones they're picking. We haven't seen a Fox and the Hound musical yet, although I'm not saying it's not going to happen. Black Cauldron would be amazing. Disney, call me.
Mhm.
But they're picking their big commercial successes first to mount, and then as they sort of then that's what's being successful for them. So that's the appeal. It's for us. It's a chance to see these things again.
Definitely. And how about you, JJ? Have any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so my brain was also going to, you know, on the cynical part, what do people get out of Disney shows? I was also going to say money. I mean, because they, you know, Disney puts the money on the stage, but the big thing I think of is, so every place I've ever worked, and I'm sure we've all had this experience, wherever you work, you're the theater person. So like if you work with somebody who has kids, I remember a mother coming to me saying that she was going to take her kids to their first ever show because they really loved the movie Little Shop of Horrors. And I had to go, okay, cool, go see it. Let me tell you how the play ends.
Good morning. It's not the same as the movie.
Like, I don't think they'll have the money for like plants to come out and actually like attack the audience, but know that they're in for something. And so, you know, and if you look at, you know, say if you do want to, because the thing is, for a lot of people, you know, buying a theater ticket is, you know, that's a night out. That, you know, that's it. You don't know dinner, nothing. You go to the theater and you go home for, you know, for an average budget. And if, you know, let's say it's Kimberly Akimbo, unless you are in tune, you're not going to necessarily know what you're going in for. And if you go in and you're going to see a show just because you know it's the one that won all the awards, and you go, oh God, this person's going to be dead by the end, and you don't, you know, or you know, Into the Woods, if you're not prepared for that, or Sweeney Todd, which is all that, you know, things that are, you know, things that I would love to go see, but not necessarily, you know, what is going to be something that's going to keep the family happy when you go to see a Disney film, when you go to see a Disney live show, you know that you're getting some, you know where the story is going to go. You're not going to be surprised when the genie decides to eat everyone in the audience at the end, you know, and so you know what you're getting, and that's what you get. So you know that when you put your investment into it, you're going to get a successful return on your investment.
JJ, I want to thank you. I have a mashup idea in my head now.
I think that's amazing.
I'm writing this down. I'm like, ooh, mashup.
Guys, as of recording, we are at 51 days until Dragon Con. Is your cosplay done yet? Have you started your cosplay yet? Anyway.
Oh, I've always started. I start on the day I get home from the last Dragon Con, and then life happens, and then I blink, and it's like, I've got 51 days, and I still need to do 1, 2, 27, 28, 29, 50. So, yeah.
I am waiting on fabric for a costume that we had an idea of in the car on the way home from last Dragon Con.
Sounds about right. Okay, well, I guess my next question is Disney has made several like what they call Broadway quality or Broadway inspired shows for things like their cruises and for the theme parks and stuff like that. Most recently, it was Rogers the Musical, which, as of this posting live, would have just closed the day before this went up. But have you seen any of these shows, even if it's just like digitally? I know there were several posted during the pandemic, or and if you have, how do they compare to a real production? Lawrence, go ahead.
Well, first of all, I think they're all. I think they are real productions. They're just real productions of a different type. I assume you guys have all been to the theme parks over the last 20 years. Have you seen Festival of the Lion King, which is the theme park version of The Lion King on Broadway? It's the fantastic show it's sort of like the 40-minute version of it, sort of like Rogers the Musical, where they try and the performers there, a lot of those performers go on to actually do the Broadway musical. It's the choreography and the vocals, mostly, with one asterisk, which I'll mention in a second because it popped up in Rogers and drove me nuts. And the staging are all the same quality that Disney puts on, just not with a $2 million budget instead of a $20 million budget for the sake. So I don't tend to think of the cruise ship shows or the theme park shows as not real. They are real. They're just real under more financial limitations to get them out. Most of them I find are good. My problem, and I'll say this, like, I'll use Rogers as an example, since I just recently watched it and it jumped out at me in the first number and made me cringe, which is when you see Broadway, everything that's happening on stage, almost everything happening on stage, you can bet your dollar, or bet your bottom dollar, to use an Annie reference, is live. But because of the quality control in the theme parks, oh my God, the canned background vocals and music just makes me want to cut my heart out. They started singing the opening number in Rogers the Musical, and the first thing that jumped out at me, I went, the entire chorus is lip syncing. And then I was pulled out of it for 10 minutes while I was trying to figure out, okay, who's actually singing live on this stage? Okay, the three girls, yes. Okay, the leads, yes. Everyone else is lip syncing. And like, no matter how much I enjoyed it, that yanked me out of it. And the theme park shows and the cruise ship shows do that. And I get it. It's a quality control thing, but it drives me nuts because it's meant to be live theater.
Yeah. For me, it was that he was brunette. Anyway.
Oh, you know what? I didn't even think about that.
I think you have to, like, as Lawrence has said, there's different constraints on a cruise ship show or a theme park show than there are on a Broadway show. That Rogers show is half an hour. That's not meant to be a 2-hour, we're going, this is our night. That's meant to be okay, we've been on the rides, our feet are sore, let's have a little sit. And instead of leaving the park, we stay in the park and then are now refreshed and have been sitting in air conditioning for half an hour and can leave. So it doesn't diminish the effort of the performers, but that's where part of it is. And because it's half an hour, you can't do the same things that you can do in a 2-hour show, no matter what show it is. Like, and it's possible some of the other shows are a little bit longer, but if we're referencing Rogers here, they did 10 years of the MCU in half an hour, and there were some real logic jumps, and characters suffered, including, as my son called it, manic pixie Nick Fury, who is not at all like the character in the movies.
I literally wrote on a piece of paper, you can't see it because the green screen, I wrote Nick Fury. Why?
So I think you have to recognize that they serve a different purpose than the Broadway shows. Definitely. And so because of that, they're going to change. And that's true of any show you go to see in a theme park, be it a Disney show, be it a, pirate stunt spectacular, Indiana Jones thing, like, it doesn't matter.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think those are designed to be sort of tasters to make you want to go. Like, hey, you spent all this money to go on the cruise. We know you got the money to go see it on Broadway. Right. So I think they're designed sort of to be tasters. But I also think, I think it's a double-edged sword, because I think it's a way to really serve as a gateway to people to go see theater, especially musical theater. But I also think in many ways it cheapens it down so much, like Lawrence said, with the lip syncing, that it kind of also really builds a sense of disdain in people that love musical theater as an art form. So I think that's where it's a weird sort of double-edged sword for it.
Definitely. Okay. JJ, Lauren, do either of you have any thoughts?
If you'd like to go first, go for it.
Sure. I saw the Finding Nemo Disney Park show at a Disney park, and enjoyed it. Again, stepping in out of the cool air, but it was also like The Lion King, where it was actors with giant puppets. And I quite enjoyed that show. I had planned see Rogers the Musical, like fly across, spend one day in LA and fly back. And watched it online because I was so excited about it. I felt like I'd manifested it into the universe by wanting it so much. And I was really disappointed with it. Because it was not everything that I had imagined it to be. And I understand that it is, pared down for the park, and they did have a whole lot of background information they had to shove into 30 minutes. But and I was like, oh, it's going into the Hyperion. They had Frozen there. That was an hour. So I was expecting a much longer show than what we got. And I also wish it was running longer.
Yeah.
To let more people go see it.
Yeah.
2 months seems like really short runtime for it.
I'm kind of surprised they went with such a short show.
I am. I think they were trying to build off of the kitschiness of the like the costumes and stuff like that they showed
I totally
during
understand
Hawkeye.
why Hawkeye walked out.
Yeah, no, definitely. And JJ, you had some thoughts.
Well, okay, so like one of the things you asked is it valid theater? And I think anytime that there's an audience in front of people that are live, you're getting that energy. And I think back to when I was in like 7th grade, and I got hired to do this like singing review thing that we took all over the state of Mississippi, because that's where I grew up. And we opened banks, we crowned fair queens and stuff, just singing our like half hour musical review that in the middle had jingles. I still remember all the lyrics to Coke Is It. I remember the lyrics to the McDLT ads. I'd like to buy the world a Coke. All of these things we had to sing. And I consider that real theater. What I kind of do is when I think of these things, well, with the exception of like I said earlier, when I saw Frozen, which was pretty much a just slightly downscaled version of what actually is now playing on bigger stages, but it I think of it almost as like community theater musicals, because it's still, they're out there and they're doing it. They don't have the budget, they might not have the pool of world-class talent, but if you see if you see Damn Yankees in Missoula, Montana, you're still going to tap your feet, and it might have some pre-recorded background vocals because they don't have enough people.
Definitely.
So it's I still think any time that there's the magic of people in front of audience, it's good.
Definitely. All right. Well, so I guess one of the things I would love to hear from you guys, because I think we're all, myself included, Disney fans and as well as theater fans, is what do you think is like your best, the worst, and like the most like overhyped Disney musical? And I'm actually going to start with myself this time because I have opinions. I know moderators are not supposed to have opinions, but for me, best is Beauty and the Beast for me. That was my introduction into Broadway and Disney. Not Broadway overall, but Disney Broadway. Anyway, for me, I've seen it twice. Both times touring. I was actually in New York when it was getting ready to close, and unfortunately, I was a broke college student. Didn't have any money to go see any Broadway shows at the time, so I didn't get to see that. But for me, Beauty and the Beast, hands down. The most disappointing one that I'm gonna actually throw, and I'm encompassing theme park shows in there, is Rogers the Musical. I had, like Lauren, I had big expectations for it. I think the canned music totally destroyed it in some regard for me, but also just they tried to pack too much into 30 minutes and overhyped. I'm gonna be honest, I think it's Frozen for me. I just I wasn't a big fan of the movie, and so when Frozen came out, I was like, okay. And then I saw Elsa was wearing pants, and I think that just took it out for me. So those were mine. And how
It's
about
cool.
how about you, Rob? What's your opinion?
So I think I think my favorite is still Lion King, just because seeing it the first time and the sheer pageantry of it and the execution of it and the puppets and the fact that everybody's buying into it. I really was impressed with Frozen.
Hmm.
I was like just dreading seeing Frozen. I'm like, this is just going to be friggin' stupid, right? He's a snowman, right? For God's sakes. But
But he likes warm hugs.
somebody has to. So, I was pleasantly surprised with that. I think the one I have the problems with, and I've not seen the wide gamut of all of them. Like I've never seen Aida, for example, right?
Hmm.
So, I did not love Aladdin.
Mm.
And the big reason I didn't like Aladdin was probably because I think it's about 20 minutes too long, right?
Hmm.
And I think that they spent so much time trying to check all of the politically correct boxes that they didn't give it a soul,
Hmm.
right? And I applaud the fact that they're being sensitive and they're being culturally aware and things, but I think that they were sort of taking so many baby steps that something got lost in it, right?
Definitely.
And some of the songs are just kind of
Mm.
not the best. I am anxious to see. I'm going to see Beetlejuice next year, so I'm very excited. That's the one I think is going to be
Not
my.
Disney.
It's not Disney. Okay, well, never
It's
mind.
not Disney, but it's good.
It's good.
All right, well, never
Like
mind then.
Touchstone, wasn't it?
Yeah, I thought it was
Yeah,
too.
don't-
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Oh
think
yeah,
it's
don't they own
Touchstone.
Touchstone?
Yes,
It's a movie turned into a musical. I mean, I saw Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
but
Yeah.
technically, since they own, yeah. See, I was like, I assumed. That
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Rob, I'm just, if I may ask, can I ask a question real quick? I'm
Yeah.
just curious as to what, like, Aladdin, which you were mentioning, like the ticking off the boxes, other than the casting itself. What I'm not sure. What can you
I'm
be more
not.
specific?
I have no problem with it. I think that I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this. I think that they were so worried about pissing people off that they didn't necessarily go at it as well as they could have.
and
If that makes any sense.
yeah,
I'm not saying that there's anything wrong. I'm not, I like the fact that they took pains to cast actors of color. I like the fact that they were very careful not to
stereotypes.
Demonize the Middle East again.
re-endorse stereotypes, right?
Mhm.
I was very happy they were doing that, but I think in the process of doing that, they cut and they cut and they cut and they cut, but they didn't think about, okay, what can we add to maybe compensate, right?
Mhm.
Or what can we do to give this? And I think that they were so, it's kind of like the driver on the freeway that goes 40 instead of 55 because he doesn't want to get in an accident.
Mhm.
Right. And I don't think that color and race and background should have nothing to do with it. Right. I think that, a show is a show, but I do think that in that case, maybe there was something about him that just didn't connect with me. Right. That I don't know. And it was certainly not the performers, because the touring version, the performers were all fantastic. Right. It
Mhm.
wasn't the sets or the costumes. Right. So then I have to look at, okay, was it the songs? Yeah, there's a couple that are just kind of and then I'm like, it's kind of long. Maybe if they cut in different places, cut this scene, added this scene or whatever. And I'm just trying to figure out why that was. And that was the only reason does that clarify that for you a little bit, Lawrence?
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to be a fascist.
No, no, I didn't think that. I didn't think it was anything specific like that at all. But like, it's like, I'm just curious, because there are times I watch things and I go, "Wow." To be honest, it's one of the things where they make some of the changes to that, like when they update the movies and they change the lyrics to make them politically correct. And I sit there and go, "I'm going to sing the original version that's in my heart since I was 14. And if you don't like it, too bad, because whatever." So yeah,
I
Aladdin is one they changed right off the bat. I mean, when the movie first came out, they changed the line, like one of the first songs in the very first song.
Where they cut off your ear if they don't like your face was changed to where the land is immense and the heat is intense.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I will say that I love the fact that like when I saw Lion King, I loved the fact that there were other people besides, rich white folks or people or white college kids that went, right? I love the fact that they're doing like culturally and, interesting, diverse productions, right? I love the fact that they're not shying away from that, which I think is one of the reasons why these musicals, despite sort of my initial dismissing of them, because I don't always love all the Disney stuff, is why I think they're relevant, because they are not afraid to give people of color a place in musicals. But
it's funny that you say that, because
they're
as someone growing up in theater and loving Disney had a reputation amongst young Black performers enjoy this stuff because you'll never ever be on their stages.
Yes.
And then The Lion King came out with a predominantly Black cast, and we all went, well, the paradigm just got changed. And then we went, well, just this time. And then Aida followed it up and went, wait, they just did it twice in a row. Okay, what are they going to do in the park? So before that point, as like a young Black kid who likes Disney, it was like, yeah, but am I ever going to actually be in any of the productions? Whereas now they have, at least on Broadway, they make a point of casting people of color, not the least of which, not just to be politically correct, but because that's the story.
Definitely.
So, but it's interesting to hear you say that, because before 98, anyone who looked like me would have gone, no.
I just remember, and this is terrible, right? Because I'm a white kid that grew up in the Midwest. I just remember going to see Lion King and being like amazingly happy that it was something so incredibly different, right? And I just remember being completely blown away by the fact that it just totally embraced that. And I felt like I was getting culturally enriched out of it, right? And I also felt that like using the puppetry angle was clever. So I also thought that like, okay, they're not half-assing it. They're trying to give me something for my money, which I also kind of liked, right? Because Disney sometimes will just take people's money and not really give you anything back. Just
Disney?
saying.
Never.
Yeah, never. Yeah.
Deanna, I think you had some thoughts.
Well, Aladdin, when I saw Aladdin, what I thought it needed to do more of was lean into the British pantomime tradition. They started doing it with Jafar and Iago. Now, if you're not familiar with British panto, which is a great theater tradition, these are fairy tales that are told. It's primarily a children's production, but it's very interactive. You boo the villain. And here in Canada, we would get a panto every year at Christmas. There would be a company that would come through and do a panto. And I went to them as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. I love them. And very much Jafar and Iago, I thought were panto villains. But because the rest of the play wasn't cast like a panto, the audience wasn't booing them. But really, like the scenery chewing that was going on, it was very panto. And had Aladdin leaned into that a bit more, I'm not saying be a panto. We didn't need Widow Twanky running around. But if they'd leaned into it a little bit more, I think it might have given Aladdin something different, where it wasn't now trying to just replicate the movie. And because that to me was where it was lacking. It was just that little spark, that little thing would have given it so much more. Because if you were asking me which is the one of the ones I've seen that is the weakest, it's Aladdin. And it's just that sort of, it's like, as Rob said, it's missing something. And to me, it needed a bit more panto. And like Rob, I also agree that Lion King is their best. And I think they've been chasing that high since. Very much every musical that comes out now from Disney is like, well, is it as good as The Lion King? And it's not just Disney asking that, it's the audience as well, and the critics. And very few of them can live up to that.
Well, I also think too that at the time when they did Lion King, there wasn't a formula, right? Now there is almost such a formula that they can just stamp it and put it out, right? It's almost like, that's why I tried to compare it to the jukebox musical, and that, it's kind of a cookie cutter kind of industry for them now, right? Which is part of the reason why I have such a love-hate relationship with them.
Mhm.
They've got some really interesting things that they could be doing as musicals that I'm
Mhm.
curious to see if they ever do.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, I think like imagine Finding Nemo as a blacklight puppet musical. Like
Yeah.
imagine if you like, or if you did it like Avenue Q, where
Mhm.
the fish are puppets and the performers are alongside them, just singing along. Like
Yeah.
that could work quite well, and you could get you could do a lot with puppetry with that particular piece of
Mhm.
work. Or Toy Story is another one that could go that way too. Where they're not just giant people like wearing huge foam costumes who can't move, but if you did puppets, you could do a lot with that. I think if we want to talk about, I want to slip this in and because we haven't really talked about this musical yet. I think a gem that a lot of people don't know about is Newsies. I think Newsies is
Mhm.
actually a pretty good musical. Is it
Fantastic.
Lion King? No, but
Mhm.
it's quite good, and you can see it on Disney Plus now. They've got a
Yeah.
taped version of it, but I think it's one that slips below the radar for most people. Most people don't even realize
Yeah.
it's technically a Disney musical.
Yeah,
It was-
And I
don't
do
think
want to
people
get
realize-
into
yeah.
those productions, but let's get back to the topic. Rapid fire here. How about you, Lauren? Just as a reminder, we're talking about best, worst, most overhyped. In your
I'm gonna go with best Lion King.
Mhm.
Worst that I've seen, Rogers the Musical.
Mm.
Parks wise, Aladdin came through town this past season, and I'd heard such like meh things about it that I wasn't like super enthused.
Mhm.
Oh, let's get tickets and go. It was just sort of, it's here.
Mhm.
So I didn't even like bother with Aladdin, which I loved Aladdin growing up. So
Definitely.
just the way that I'd heard about it was just,
Yeah. How about you, JJ?
Man, this is not cool to be this mean to Aladdin, but I will say my problem with Aladdin, and I'm going to be real quick about this, is my same problem
Sure
with
you are.
I am. I promise I will. Is that any musical that relies really, really heavily on one performer is never my favorite, because if that
Mhm.
performer has a bad night,
Mhm.
again, sorry to mention this again, like if I had gone to see Beetlejuice on a night when Brightman had an understudy, I would have felt ill-used. So
Mhm.
so if you go to see it on a night where the genie's having a bad night, or if the genie is not a great understudy, then unfortunately I feel that's my problem with the film in general. I don't particularly care for the characters of Aladdin and Jasmine, so that Aladdin's going to be the one that I would probably go see the last, just because it has the greatest ability to just fall apart. I love the music to Frozen, so I love Frozen enough that you could hate it, and I've got enough of everybody on this panel. I love that music so much, and with the understanding that I have not seen it. This is the tail end of my sort of me is I don't know that I will ever get to fully enjoy The Lion King, because everybody's always told me how great it is. When I see it, I'll probably get all caught up in it. I'll probably cry like a wee little boy, but I haven't seen it, and so I'm just like, how can it be all of that?
Mhm.
How?
Mhm. Definitely. How about you, Lawrence?
I like Aladdin.
I
Although
was half expecting you to be in cosplay. I'm just saying.
I thought about it, but it's too hot. No, I mean, I'll definitely agree with some of the things. Aladdin, I did not dislike Aladdin. I really enjoyed Aladdin. Although Aladdin, since we've been talking about the musicals and their theme park cruise ship counterparts, it felt like they took the theme park cruise ship show and gave it the extra $8 million, but didn't necessarily bring the plot and the music and the writing up to Broadway standards. They just brought everything else up to Broadway standards. That being said, I thoroughly enjoyed Aladdin. The one thing that no one has spoken about, which is the one that I think is overrated. I don't understand why people liked Tarzan.
I forgot that was a show.
I forgot about it, to be honest.
I don't understand why people. I mean, if you did, I'm not hating on you. I try to never take asunder someone else's joy from what they find.
Mhm.
But like, and it just the musical didn't do anything for me. The movie didn't do anything for me. Which is probably why the music didn't do anything for me. Well, see, no, the music didn't do anything. Like the movie, the music, the musical, like none of them impressed me. And some people were like, "No, it's so underrated. It's one of the best things that Disney ever wrote." And Phil Collins, I'm like, I just don't get it. I'm sorry. It was tedious to me. The park version is tedious. The film is tedious. The musical is tedious. But kudos to the people who put their hard work into it, because nobody walks on stage and go, I'm intentionally trying to do garbage today. So credit to them. It just didn't do it for me. Whereas not to join onto the bandwagon, The Lion King is one of Disney's best musicals on Broadway, because it's not a Disney musical.
It's inherently different.
It's not a Disney. It's inherently different from everything else. They did not try to put the movie on stage, because you can't. So they leaned into the heightened reality of using puppets, Julie Taymor's influence. They leaned into, if you told people the movie 1994 Lion King is set in Africa, they would think of it in abstract terms, but they wouldn't actually think Africa, Wakanda. But you can't help but do that in the Broadway version, from literally the first note that comes out of Rafiki's mouth. You go, oh, I'm in Africa, like in the history books, Africa. They leaned into the Hamlet. They leaned into the darker side of the story, which some of which was written for the film and obviously taken out, but they leaned into the strong female characters and the second act. They lean into the darkness of the second act by getting away from Hakuna Matata for a while and going and showing the devastation of the Pride Lands. Everything that makes, I think, that a great musical is because it's not a Disney, because it's all the things that don't necessarily scream Disney, they just scream good musical. Whereas Aladdin they knew better than to try and recreate Robin Williams, so they went back to the Cab Calloway model, which was smart, but it's still trying to put the movie on stage. Frozen is putting the movie on stage. Beauty and the Beast is putting the movie on stage. Yeah. So to a lesser extent than the other two, because I see Sarah going.
I also think when you talk about additions to the musical, He Lives in You, that song is like, so
powerful.
Like, and if you've lost a parent, like that song just, your waterworks. It when they talk about adding new material to get the Tony, that rises above that label. It's not just it's beautiful.
Well, that was written for the movie.
I know they cut it,
it just wasn't used.
Yeah, and it's just the performance of it is so good. And when you talk about making the second act darker, like, yes, there's hope in that, but there's also sorrow. There's pathos in that as well, and that adds to that sort of darkness of the second act.
Definitely.
Okay, I'll go see it.
It's really worth it.
Did want to
sit in the orchestra on the left-hand side. That way the elephant goes right by you.
I have actually seen it as an elementary school production. Like, my son's school did it when he was in grade 4. And I'm telling you, it stood up. Like, it's not, is it Broadway? No. But like, when I compare it to the production of Annie that I saw at that school, which
horror stories about Annie in high school.
How do you mess up Annie? How does a school mess up Annie?
So Daddy Warbucks, the skull cap, the kid's hair wasn't properly taped down, and he looked like a cone head where they'd lopped off part of the cone. I was dying. I was just dying in the audience. I was like, "Oh my god!"
I'm in. Let's go.
I don't want to lose the plot, but JJ, if you happen to have, or anybody watching, a VR headset, there is a VR 360 version of the opening of The Lion King on YouTube.
Wow.
And so basically you play it on your phone, you put it in the headset, it allows you to watch the opening of The Lion King, but the camera keeps changing position. So you start in the audience, then you switch to being in the stage left wing looking out, then you switch to Rafiki's position looking out, and you get to watch that opening number, and you can turn your head and you're in the theater on the stage watching it. It's next to being in the cast and being on stage, it's like the closest you to being in the experience. that should be your teaser into okay, I'll see it.
Well, and I'm not going to get cast on that show.
It's Amazon Prime. It's Amazon Prime Day. I'm going to be looking for VR headsets now. That
Yes,
you said that.
get a cheapo $20 cardboard one that you can just slip your phone into, and trust me, it's worth it.
So this was brought up somewhat already a couple times, but Disney has produced other shows that aren't Disney IP, I guess is the word for it. Newsies, obviously. Newsies was
animated
a huge one.
movies.
Yes, they're animated movies. But there's Aida, Peter and the Starcatcher was another one that they worked with. Have you guys seen any of these productions? And do you think this is something like Disney should explore, or do you think they should stick with their animated IP? And Lauren, I know you have opinions, so.
I've seen Aida.
Mhm.
I love Aida. I still, to this day, listen to the soundtrack on a regular basis. I've been trying to find something other than like a YouTube version of somebody in the audience filming it. Like, I'd love if they, if it was on Disney Plus and I could watch it on a regular basis.
Mhm.
And I definitely think Disney should do more of shows like Aida, like Newsies. They have the money that they can put behind it. They have $1 bazillion.
Mhm.
If it doesn't go well, it's not going to be a disaster for them financially. It's not going to like close all their production companies. And they have the marketing ability to reach a wide audience and to bring unique stories to Broadway.
Definitely.
And I think they should.
Yeah. How about you, JJ? What do you think?
I think they also have, not only do I think anybody producing new plays is a good idea always.
Mhm.
They also have non-animated IP that is not necessarily a musical that could be a lot of fun. I mean, why not make the Apple Dumpling Gang Rides Again the musical? I mean, you've got a catalog that goes that far back. I think that if you paired something interesting, like say one of those old shows, and you get somebody like, say Roger Miller with Big River, you've got you can have lightning in a bottle that would be something that wouldn't necessarily feel like an IP you've seen before, but would still have that Disney comfort. And I go for it.
Parent Trap. I think that would be an awesome one.
So much fun. And you've got that one great song already.
Yeah, exactly. How about you, Deanna? What do you think?
Well, I mentioned Newsies because I actually think it's, as a Broadway musical, it's solid. It's not the best thing that's ever been written, but it's solid. It's really good, and the film version is excellent. I believe Jeremy Jordan's in it, so you get that, which is always nice. When you can get those performances on film, because Broadway is such an ethereal. It comes, it goes, and unless you're lucky enough to be a researcher, can go to the New York Public Library and watch all those videos. You don't get, or you live in New York, you don't get to see those things. So that's one. I think there's a lot of Disney properties that could absolutely get turned into Escape to Witch Mountain, which is one of my all-time favorites from when I was a child.
Definitely.
Just that would be an incredible, you could totally do something with that. And it would work. And again, if you want to talk about Disney looking forward to those Disney Junior productions, it's about kids, right? So you could absolutely take that and make that into a musical. So absolutely, there's some really good properties that would work quite well.
For sure. Okay. How about you, Lawrence?
Absolutely. Aida and Newsies are two of my favorite musicals. It actually also just occurred to me, between the televised version of Rogers the Musical and Aida, Adam Pascal has been in 2 Disney musicals. Because when Hawkeye aired and he sang the first line, I jumped out of my chair. I was like, "Is that Roger?" I was like, "Oh my!" Even my wife who doesn't know Broadway was like, "Is that the guy from Rent?" I was like, "Oh yeah." And all she heard was the first 2 lines. They should absolutely lean into. Obviously they're. As they are with their updated live action movies, they're leaning into their animated IP because it's a built-in audience, it's a built-in moneymaker. But I would like them to take chances with other IP that they either something original and they just produce it under the Disney banner. Because as someone who's like has been trying to work on writing a musical for forever and a century, I mean, there's not. I love the fact that stuff is being translated, but we need more original content. Like enough of like enough with the revivals and the 12th different version of something being translated from something else. That being said, they should translate. They should absolutely do newsies, i.e., translate stuff from their live action catalog. Also, Disney also already owns everyone else anyway. Hence Rogers the Musical. They own the Marvel catalog. They own the 20th Century Fox Studios catalog now. There's so much both animated and live action material to pull from. It doesn't necessarily need to have been a musical originally. That would probably make a great musical if you put it in the hands of the right writers, the right choreographers, the right costuming and staging people. If you told me Beetlejuice would not that it's Disney again, but if you told me Beetlejuice would make a great musical, I'd have gone no. In fact, I didn't want to see it when it first came out. You're not using any of Tim Burton's music. No. Beetlejuice, what's the point? Another film being translated. I went to see it the first time because a friend of mine asked me to get them rush tickets and said if I get up in the morning and get them for her because she won't, she'd give me tickets. I went, okay. And then I saw Beetlejuice 4 times and have a costume because that's the musical it was. But yeah, they absolutely should lean into some of their other IP.
It's just a matter of time till we get a Star Wars musical. It'll happen.
I was gonna say we do not need a Star Wars musical.
It's already been done as musical parodies and spoofs and
Holiday Special, the musical.
No, wait, that's what I was gonna say.
Oh, yeah,
I draw the line at Chewbacca's. There'll be a whole song just called.
No. We're gonna get an Ahsoka starring musical. It's gonna happen.
How about you, Rob? What do you think of this?
Taking us to freakishly scary levels. I want a Herbie the Love Bug Christine
Oh
mashup.
man, that'd be amazing.
You know,
Did you say Herbie the Love Bug Christine mashup?
Yes.
Herbie the Hate Bug.
Yeah, no, seriously though, like the small child in me would love a Cat from Outer Space musical, right? You know, stuff like that. Like they did so many just bizarre things that they could do now that work as musicals. But you know, also I want them to try something different now, right? I want them to do, and this has been touched upon, some kind of a musical theater production that's original and interesting, and then make that into a movie. Just to see how that transformation goes. But I'm fine with them doing things like Newsies and stuff. I think that in general, it'll expand what they do, right? I think the public needs to, at this point, when they see Disney musical, needs to be able to not think about a certain thing and then when they go, that's what they get. I think they need something outside the box, a little invigorating for the brand, especially now when the entertainment dollar is being fought over so much. You know, I wouldn't be opposed to like an Up musical, right? You know, so there's a lot of really good, heartwarming stuff they could do, right? You know, there's some, you know, Bambi the musical, you know,
Stop going for the heartbreak.
I don't want to see
5 minutes
Mama die on.
How would that be on stage?
They would do that off stage. They, you know, but there's a lot of really cool things they could do. And I'm looking at the 70s, folks. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, pretty much look up anything that says Walt Disney and Ken Berry in it and try to make it into a musical, right? Because a lot of those films, say what you want about them, have a certain charm about them that could really translate well to a stage.
For sure.
We still have Kurt Russell. Let's get the computer wore tennis shoes.
Oh, and you could do a mashup with War Games.
All right. Well, we are running a little long, but I wanted to get to this question here, and then we will wrap up. Which is, has there been any like workshopped or rumored musicals like that didn't like really come to fruition or make it to Broadway that you're disappointed about? And is there any like rumored or upcoming musicals that you're excited about with Disney? For me, my biggest disappointment was Hunchback of Notre Dame. It never made it much past the workshop stage. It was put on, but it never made it to Broadway. And I think it's one of those shows that was amazing musically, and I would have loved to see it more. And there are on YouTube. But anyway, I'll stop playing panelist. And does anybody have any shows or
There,
anything?
there's rumors
Hercules.
that Coco, that apparently is in pre-production, and
Mhm.
Coco is a lovely story and has some really good built-in music, and really, when you talk, JJ was saying, don't stop going for the heart. Like, that one is just
Yeah,
like
just like
that
ripped
movie.
my
Yeah,
heart
yeah.
out.
And,
Like,
and there's, if they take the Julie Taymor card, there's an opportunity there with where that story is set to do something different.
mhm.
Right, to not and for it not to fall into the trap that I think Aladdin falls into, and I think a lot of the musicals that I grew up with, that sort of in my late teens, that showpiece where there's a big technical thing, like the helicopter in Miss Saigon comes to mind, that that the musical almost becomes about the effect rather than the story. But I think Coco has a possibility of being quite good if they're willing to, if they get somebody good to put it in their hands.
Definitely. Lauren, you were saying Hercules?
Yeah, I saw some stuff about initial stagings of Hercules,
Mm-hmm.
rehearsals for it, and I've liked Hercules. I'd like to see it as a show.
Well, and I'm terrible with names, so I'm not going to even try to remember it. The gentleman who won the Tony for Aladdin, the genie, is, I believe, attached to Hercules right
This is
now.
James Monroe.
Yeah. And
Hercules went up last year in Central Park, right? Or was it year before, or back before the apocalypse?
it was pre-pandemic, but I think they're putting it on in Jersey right now, or
And
they're
is
getting
that
ready.
the one that they're trying to develop into a full Broadway musical? Because I heard
Yeah.
I heard that was spectacular, but it came and went so fast that I never got a chance to see it.
Yeah, I think it's at Paper Mill. Or was
Paper
that
Mill sounds right.
Yeah, I think is where it was. Does anybody have any other ideas or things you would like to see them do? Like as far as
Emperor's New Groove. I think that'd be fun.
That would be fun. Yeah, about 10 years ago, I heard some vague rumors. The sequel didn't do very well, but I'd heard they were workshopping some ideas to do some Tron on stage, and now I mean it has the ability to be very Starlight Express.
Mhm.
But I think with modern technology and no roller skates, it could be visually interesting.
That's a show I still desperately want to see, but I never will.
Wait, which one? Starlight
Express. I desperately want to see that so bad.
You and Kevin need to talk about Starlight Express.
Get a TARDIS, go back.
I know.
Yeah.
If you get a TARDIS and
That
go
is what I
back
would do
to
if I
the
had a TARDIS.
original production, not to all of the changed ones that happened over the years.
No.
Like go see the original '88 production at the Winter Garden, at the Gershwin.
Yeah,
That was the production that was good.
Or what? Not Christian Chenoweth. I always get them confused. The one from 30 Rock. I get the two of them confused.
Yes, the one that Jake Krakowski. Yeah, that was a good.
Nearly died doing. Yeah.
All the new Starlight Express, the new Starlight Express, the new One More Time Again Starlight Express. All those versions are like God help us all.
Right.
Well, Rob, did you have any thoughts?
I want the template to be Lion King more than some of the other stuff. I do think Frozen is a step back in that right direction, because I really think Frozen did a lot of interesting things that I was not expecting. And I had not seen, the movies for Frozen. I was so like, whatever, this is annoying but it was in our season ticket package. So we went, and I was really just impressed by the cohesiveness of the plot, the fact that it was way more adult oriented than I thought, and I just want them to make smart theater again and not look at money. I think that's one of the things they tend to do, and a lot of it is cyclical with Disney. Sometimes they look at the money, and sometimes they don't.
Hmm.
We're coming out
Definitely.
of the phase where they were
Mhm.
looking at the money, and now maybe we're coming out of that.
Yeah. Except then you also have like and I would almost consider this theater is the Star Cruiser, because that's kind of like fourth wall immersive theater, and that was a big whoosh down.
It was customer successful. It just it was
Okay.
financially difficult, but it had
Yeah.
one of the highest ratings of people that went through it of anything in the parks, which I just find interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Well, um, well, I think we're gonna go ahead and wrap up here, but I would love you all to tell people where can they find you, where can they find you at con if you're gonna be at con this year, and JJ, go ahead.
At con, you can find me in Portland, Oregon. Sadly, I will not be able to go. I'm all over the internet, usually under my name, JJ Hawkins, with the exception of Instagram, where I am Mars_needs because some idiot took my name. But other than that, yeah, anywhere you look for me, JJ Hawkins.
Awesome. How about you, Lauren?
I'll be at Dragon Con. I'll be on the Broadway TV musicals panel. And I'll be attending a lot of other panels. And then I'm in one of the big parties every single night. And I'll be around, and you should be able to find me.
Definitely. How about you, Lawrence?
I will be at Dragon Con.
Mhm.
I will usually be in multiple costumes over the course of the day. So whatever I'm wearing at 10 a.m. is not what I'm wearing at 10 p.m. But I will be part of the musical theater panels. You will also incessantly find me at most of the Star Trek stuff if I'm not at the musical theater panels. I can be found at Geek Life Rules, which attaches to everything else I do. So my theater professional Instagram is attached to Geek Life Rules. The New York Cosplay Cabaret is attached to Geek Life Rules. So if you find that on social media, you will 99% find me.
Definitely.
And yeah, and walk up and say hi. I love, I like meeting people. That's how I met all of you fine folks.
How about you, Deanna?
I will not be at Dragon Con. I will be at work for much of it because my bosses are bringing us back the day before Labor Day again. Yay! I'm a teacher, but normally that's my time off.
Yay, teachers!
Thank you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but if you, I post on the Facebook group. So if you're not part of the Dragon Con theater Facebook group, you need to be. And I also help run the Revolution SF Facebook group where I post a lot of memes. So some of them I even make. So head on over there.
Definitely. How about you, Rob?
I am on the Facebook and the Twitter and the Post. You can find me there along with 5 other people on Post. I'm going to be at Dragon Con doing various and sundry things. So you will see me.
Definitely. All right. Well, as far as where you can find me, if I'm not up to my head in theater group things behind the scenes, because stage manager, you can find me again on the theater group. I At con, I'll be on slash moderating many of our theater panels. I'll also be on Saturday night's Phantom sing along, which I may or may not have spent 2 weeks doing the videos for. So please come. And me and Gary are emceeing that, and that's as of recording. It's going to be Saturday night. Check the app, and other than that, yeah, no, you'll find me around. I won't be in costume. But other than that, yeah, tomorrow we'll be posting our second panel, which is going to be Shakespearean comedy, love, mistaken identities, and social satire. That should be going up about between 10 and 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you're watching this video, please make sure you like, comment, subscribe. Please join our Facebook group, which again is Dragon Con Theater and Performing Arts Unofficial. We are not a track. We hope to inspire Dragon Con to put on a a theater track, and but until then, we love being the home of theater content. We appreciate all of the tracks that we're collaborating with to put on panels. And yeah, until then, have a good con. Make sure you drink water and take a shower.
Not just one. Not just one.
Yes.
One shower a day.
What? And also eat, please. No passing out. And until then, you have a wonderful con. Bye.
So long, farewell, Auf Wiedersehen, goodbye.